Welcome to the Broken Agenda podcast, sponsored by Laughing Rock Technology.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, so hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. I am Craig Stoneha. To my right is Tyler McCulley. To my left is Jimmy Klopp. This is the Broken Agenda. It is December the 23rd. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody watching. Even though you probably won't see this until January, but you know,
Still.
go for next year.
Thought is there.
Exactly. It's the thought that matters.
Oh yeah, this one's date sensitive.
Not really.
No.
It's like many of them are. But I mean, we're not even doing a holiday topic. I couldn't think. I tried to think of a topic.
It wasn't until you said Merry Christmas, then you messed it all
I
up.
still like to say it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was telling Lisa Marie that because we didn't do Christmas cards this year, we were just busy, and it just didn't happen. And I think anybody watching this, you probably had a year where it just didn't happen. Some of you watching this, maybe it never happened. Good for you, because they're horrible. But we just didn't send them out this year. And Lisa Marie kind of felt bad about it. And I said, I don't even understand why we send holiday cards. Because everybody else sends holiday cards. And everybody gets the holiday cards at the same time. I said, I think we should mix it up. I think we should start sending out generic cards to everybody we know in like July 5th.
Yeah.
And just like, happy summer.
Christmas in July card.
Yeah, sure, do that. Just, that's from the pool. Happy, bright sunny days. I don't know. I just think at least they need to stand out. You'd be the one card on the refrigerator.
Well, we don't send them either, but I do enjoy getting them.
Yeah.
We like to see what everyone's. I don't know why we don't send them though. Just we don't really do. I guess it kind of sucks. We haven't really done family pictures.
No, I tried to get some done this year too.
We don't really do. I don't have. Yeah, that's the nice thing about Christmas cards is everybody has a family picture every Christmas.
Man, but you get drug out and you gotta go stand and take that damn picture. I hate that.
I gotta tell you the
It
best.
is brutal, but it's a cool thing to have.
Since we're on Christmas
Jackson.
cards,
Settle down. Just get this over with so we can get the hell out of here. Stop screwing around.
If Tyler was born like 30, 40 years too late, Tyler would have been an amazing 1963, 1966 dad. Like, just would have killed it. That was his time. Anyway, I'm sorry. I did the intro. I didn't tell you what we're talking about today. Today we are talking about ESG. And I thought it was a good topic until I started to talk to these two guys and realized, and then other people, and realized nobody knows what ESG is. So I guess that's a good thing to have as a podcast topic because we're gonna.
Is that the stuff they put in Chinese food?
No, it's about as useful, but no, it is not MSG. It's ESG. So environmental, social, and governance. So we're going to get into this. We're going to get into what is it, because obviously we definitely got to make sure we're clear about what exactly it is we're talking about. We're talking about how is it used, where is it used, how does it affect you, how does it affect businesses, how does it affect technology, obviously, which we bring everything back to here, and why does it matter? I mean, it's an interesting, fascinating topic that I think a lot of people are going to start seeing in their daily lives in the next 3 to 5 years. That nobody's talking about right now outside of the financial world.
which is why we're bringing it to you.
That's right. You were asking some questions before the podcast, Jimmy. Do you want to get into that stuff first, or do you want me to just start running through what this thing is?
Well, I'll let my questions come from what you say. I think. I don't know.
The problem is I'm not even entirely sure how to describe it. All right, so essentially what it is environmental, social, and governance. So it's a way of rating the intangibles for a business. So traditionally, business organizations, corporations, things like that were basically rated on profit. How much did you spend? How much did you bring in? What was the difference? If the difference was big, you were a valuable company. If it was small or negative, you sucked. And then your valuation came from your profit level and from your ability to generate revenue and to generate proceeds from that revenue. This is basically saying there's other stuff involved in business that we're not rating that maybe we should. So their environmental impact, how they try to minimize it or address things like renewable energy or greenhouse gas emissions, things like that.
Yeah.
The social, which would be stuff like race and gender sensitivity of the organization, income inequality sensitivity of the organization, stuff like that. Does it give back to charities? Does it whatever? And then governance, which in my opinion, is actually the only one of the three that I think actually holds a decent amount of merit from a business valuation standpoint. So, but I think it's also the most confusing of the three. So governance would be like, how do you handle your board policies, like your board of directors policies? So how do you handle your board compensation? How do you handle your internal policies? You know, a lot of the governance stuff ends up leading to fraud in organizations or lack of compliancy, which can get companies in trouble, stuff like that. So the governance at least has has value in the sense that it can tell you about potential pitfalls coming for the company if they're not properly governing their organization from the top down. So that one at least is business oriented. The other two aren't really business oriented at all. They're just kind of stuff we think they should do. I mean, kind of.
No, you're right. It's moral, right? A lot
Moral.
of stuff is and I think from an investment perspective, it's to give people an idea of who aligns with their own morals, or it's supposed to.
Well, I mean, all right. So if that's the case, then whose morals?
Well, exactly, right? So I admit I don't know anything about this, but from what I gathered, it was essentially a checklist that I could look at and say, these things that this company does, I believe in, and I think are good things. I want to give them my money as a shareholder. Not necessarily me defining or expecting these things to be found across all the companies, but finding companies that matched my own morals. That's how I understood it from an investment perspective.
Gotcha. So so from your perspective, you're saying that if they had a high E in the ESG, a high rating, and you cared a lot about renewable energy, you could infer from that they're probably pro renewable energy.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And then you would choose to invest in them based on not just financial factors, but also
Right. Financial factors, and then the fact that they align with, my pseudo environmental concerns. But then you could also use it to look at a company that maybe they're rating very high in the environmental side, but the social side is terrible. And for me, that's a big deal, right? You got to have balance there. And this is all theoretical. I'm just kind of giving examples.
so not for you, but for theoretical you.
Theoretical me, yeah, right? So maybe I'm like, but they're, slamming kids into a sweatshop in China. But they're really carbon neutral.
But they use a lot of solar panels on the sweatshop.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's like, wow, this is terrible because it's a sweatshop, but you know what? They got the solar panels, so I'm still good with that type deal.
Okay.
Again, theoretical.
Theoretical you. Gotcha. I mean, now it's funny you say that because I did dig into the scoring on this.
Yeah.
So just to let you know how the scoring works, it doesn't at all. So there are no agreed upon metrics. There are no agreed upon categories. There are no agreed upon criteria. The whole thing is super subjective.
Okay, and I'm glad you said that because when I was trying to do research, I could not find any granular points on anything. And I thought, like, man, it's a couple of days before Christmas. My Google must be off. Like Google just took a vacation. I'm like,
No, you know what's funny? If you were Googling it, they didn't even talk about how subjective it was. Good luck finding an article that even talks about the subjective nature of ESG.
It was
like a
literally the
Google
same
alert
article
going on over
copied
there.
and pasted like 7 times. Like,
Yeah.
here's environmental, social, governance, and these are what they're supposed to mean, and that's all I could find. Like, nobody could give me what I was looking for.
You could write a contrarian article, but it would never show up on Google.
Exactly.
You'd be on page 9,012. So you had brought up earlier we were talking about Tesla. All right, so this is a perfect example of the subjective nature of this thing.
So is what's happening right now? I guess we're entering an era where we want companies to operate from a moral compass, right? Like Tyler said, to bring up morals, probably the best way to describe it. That we're not just looking at the bottom lines anymore. We have these categories now where we're going to assess and make a rating. How much do you make? How socially responsible are you? Or socially responsible are you? How environmentally responsible are you? Is everybody at the top hogging the money, or is it?
Well, the problem is, though, we don't agree on the standards. And this is where I have an issue with this type of stuff. Is the environmental thing we'll come back to. Let's shelf that. Mm-hmm. But let's go to the social thing. So social values change anymore on a weekly basis. I mean, I don't think we don't agree with what we said a year ago at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 year ago today, we were talking about defunding the police. And now you're seeing the same cities that were doing that are now paying premiums to hire police officers.
We're not talking about people who have no kind of like control over their brains. We're talking about like, you know,
but where does this social come from? So now you're talking about defunding the police. So now if your company doesn't come out and say that you're anti-police, you get dinged on in your ESG because you're not socially responsible and you're pro-police when you're supposed to hate police.
Well, who are you not socially responsible to?
That's
I have an inkling that the crowd that wants to defund the police is a very small crowd. It's just that the media has a very large voice for that small crowd, but at the heart of things, I just don't believe that there's a big following.
But who's making the decision on the ESG score?
I just think, well, I don't know who's making that.
I can tell you who's making it. Independent ESG scores. So self-proclaimed ESG experts make the determinations.
Yeah, and
so even if it's a small group, that same small group are the same people that write for the New York Times or work for these organizations. They're the same ones that are saying the stuff. So even if it's a small group, they could be aligning with things that maybe a larger group doesn't. But if they're the ones giving the score, does it matter?
It's the Illuminati.
Yeah, they get to make the determination whether, even if it's only 10% agrees with it, if they're the ones that get to make the call and they agree with it,
well, I say we
then
start
that
our
becomes
own.
the new benchmark of our society.
Fine, I say we start an ESG scoring operation.
We'll do our own ESG.
Yeah.
An ESG within an ESG. We're
I
not going
say
to
we
invite those other ESGs.
Well, obviously there's a lack of ESG scorers, so there's demand there.
Well, here, let me give you an example. All right, so we're talking kind of like high level theoretical. So Tesla. So they sent out a request to 3 separate independent auditors for an ESG score for Tesla. First one, auditor number 1, 5 stars out of 5. Perfect ESG. Tons of renewable energy. They build an environmentally responsible vehicle. Their employees love senior management and think they're being treated fantastically. Their governance policies are rock solid. There's 0 instances of fraud over the history of the company and everything else. And they're very socially active. They're one of the biggest organizations as far as philanthropists go in the world, right? 5 stars. Second person, 1 star.
Liberal.
Well, I mean, I don't know what it's an electric car company. Like, I don't know if that's, but they gave it 1 star. They decided that they make too many batteries and the lead in the batteries are going to destroy the groundwater, and that their employees, there's no consistency between wages between nations because they're going off of the standards within that nation. So that's not fair. And that their CEO keeps talking about Dogecoin and he's not focused on electric cars and that's irresponsible and he should be focused on one thing. 1 star. Third guy, or woman, I don't know what they were, it doesn't matter. Third person, 2.5 stars. I kid you not, you can't make this stuff up. They fell right back in the middle. So you had 3 independent people, all considered ESG experts, 3 completely divergent reviews. And all 3 of them were acceptable. And now, investment companies, banks, and everybody else involved with ESG gets to pick which one they're going to go with based on what. So how is that any different? You're assigning an ESG score, but you're choosing the one that fits the narrative that you want. So maybe you want to invest, you want Tesla in your portfolios because you like Tesla. Well, I'm going to take the 5-star one, give them a high ESG rating, and then I can push them into every ESG portfolio that I have and every non-ESG that wants to have a portion of an ESG. I hate Tesla and I want people to sell. I don't want to be a part of it. Fine, they got a 1-star. Like, there's no consistency here, but we're using it actively to build mutual funds. We're using it actively to deny companies loans. So Bank of America is actually starting to use ESG scores to determine whether or not a company can get a loan. So oil companies, you ain't never getting a loan again. Really? Like, that's it. You're done.
I can't believe Bank of America is still a thing.
Right?
Like, their ESG score has to be like -2.
I bring this up too. Hold on. So I looked that up. I'm so glad you brought that up. Hold on. I had a long agenda here. This is a good one. So Bank of America, what they're doing now is with the ESG scores, they're changing the criteria based on the organization so that it still gets a high ESG if they like you. So Bank of America, they removed everything that had to do with governance and everything. They removed debt ratio and credit quality from the loans. This is a bank. Debt ratio and credit quality are like the only 2 things that are quantifiably mandatory. They removed them from the ESG rating so it would bump up their governance rating so that they would get a BB. I can't make this stuff up. Like, there's nothing, and we're using this to determine what people have in their retirement portfolios. I got other examples if you want
No, I do want them.
Oh, okay, fine. You know
Yeah.
what? Here's a fun one. So BlackRock was getting multiple divergent ESG ratings intentionally so that they could put different stocks in different portfolios so they could sell them as ESG portfolios, even though they were all the same as other portfolios they had that were non-ESG. And they were using the different scores so that they could fit a divergent ESG portfolio together. So they were just making up ESG scores. They just kept requesting ESG scores from different people until they got the number they wanted, and then slid that company into the portfolio they were already going to put them into just so they could tag them as an ESG portfolio. Here's a good one. I didn't put the name of the company. Shoot, I should have wrote McDonald's. So I don't think I wrote. So McDonald's, apparently somebody wanted McDonald's to look good on paper. So they decided they were going to include recycling as one of the ESG criteria. That was never an ESG criteria for any fast food in the history of ESG, because a couple of months earlier, a couple of European countries made it mandatory that all restaurants recycle. So McDonald's had to comply, or else they couldn't operate in those countries anymore. But now, according to the ESG, they have a recycling program in place, and it bumped their score up from a C to a double B. So they invented a scenario where they could change the criteria on an existing company that already had criteria only in a geographic area where they were forced to do something just so they could give them a higher rating. Now this one I wrote, standards vary by company. Like, there's just no consistency. Like, one company might be rated on water stress, which is how much water you take from the environment for your operations. But another company in the same industry might not have water stress, but they might have data protection. And they carry the same weight. So one company encrypts their data and they get the same amount of credit as somebody that doesn't stress the water table. I don't know. One company might be rated on their minimum wage, and somebody in the same industry might be rated on emissions reduction. I mean, I'm telling you, they're not even close.
It feels like Google reviews. Someone will give a 1 star, and then it's a glowing review, like best place ever. 1 star though, because they forgot the napkin.
Yes.
That type deal.
Tyler, you want to talk about NFTs, don't you?
No. And I just watched those episodes because I was editing them. I was just like, oh.
Did we lose you again?
Huh?
Because you start glazing over by the end of the NFT spectrum.
I was out.
Okay, I think it seems like everything in the whole world's changing. I mean, everything is changing, and I don't know. I mean, some of these issues, it's okay, I think, to look at companies and have these standards. I mean, we can't keep trashing the world, right? I think everybody would agree.
But what I'm saying is they're not standards. That's what I'm saying. They're being sold as standards.
I think they're trying. What happens when you start to do something, right? You start to do something, and look how messy it is when you watch something on TV that's a political, like a media. I mean, it's a mess to watch those people try to figure something out. Like there's too many people with too many opinions, and they just can't get anything done. When you're trying to accomplish things politically. So, you say the list of things. So
are you saying this is a political thing?
Well, no, I just think that things are being brought to the table. This obviously was improved by a political entity to say, right? I mean, ESG is going to be something we're going to use to rate companies, right? And then you have this guy screaming environmental, and you have this guy screaming, whatever, socially responsibility. You have this guy screaming, be kind to your workers. And so and then they're saying, okay, well, here, and they throw all these things in, and then they're like, and then they start to build this thing. It's not like when you're running your company and you have a decision, you probably bring your guys in and you say to each, maybe you have 5-10 people, and you say, hey, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Boom, everybody spits out their opinion. Boom, you make the decision. Here's what we're gonna do. I can't make it all work perfectly, but okay, I get the list of criteria, but I don't. Now you have this rampant. Now you have these weird people that have decided, oh, I'm going to write about ESG now, and I have this crazy left opinion, and then you have this guy, I got this crazy right opinion, and then you got this guy in the middle that's trying to be rational, and we're hoping that the people that in the middle of this, the rational people are going to prevail.
I would agree with that, but I have two problems with what you're saying. One is that I work in the IT sphere. All right, we come up with standards that are globally implemented every year, sometimes multiple times a year. And we do not release the standard until we figured all that out. So if people are still yelling, be nice to your worker, and that's not in there and you haven't figured out what that means and documented it and packaged it and gotten it ready for deployment, then the standard doesn't get released. I mean, Wi-Fi. It's not like they just put Wi-Fi, we're coming up with a new standard for Wi-Fi. We're just going to put it out. And as people use it, we'll figure out if it works. No, you've got to figure it all out first. You may say, hey, we're coming up with this new standard for Wi-Fi, or hey, we're coming up with this new standard for cabling or whatever. But you don't release the standard until you've figured out the details. Now, you might adjust it in the real world environment. You might say, hey, we're gonna tamp down the broadcast ranges or bring up the wattages or whatever because you realize you can, or certain things work better or not. But the core fundamental things are figured out. This is actively being used to determine loan status, to determine investment portfolios, to determine retirement plans for individuals, and we don't even have basic standards. We don't even know the absolute basics. We can't even tell you what criteria are even being used for an industry.
Well, I mean, because everything is almost a topic for the conspiracy theory.
Well, then it shouldn't be released. It
well,
shouldn't be a thing.
It's like, why are they doing all this? Why are they irresponsibly acting and passing laws and having companies do this kind of stuff? There's more of an agenda. I mean, it's like so ridiculous that how do you even have conversations about things? That's where we've gotten to the point in this country. You can't talk about anything because it's so ridiculous. The people that are somehow being able to implement these kinds of things, I don't even, I agree with what you're saying there. And what you said is totally absurd. Why are they why are they doing this? I mean, why? Tyler, why?
Don't ask me.
Well, I have a theory.
From the 60s.
I always have a theory. He is from the 60s. I have a theory, but I always have a theory, and I don't know if they're ever right because we never circle back to them.
That's why they're theories.
So I think we're just pandering to the millennials. I think you've got. So there was a study I read, and don't quote me on the stats here, but it was of like, what are we, Gen X?
I'm a millennial, technically, depending on the study.
Well, you're messing it up. You're not doing a good job.
No, I don't identify as a millennial.
That's because they do it by decades, right?
That's all I care.
They're trying to do it by decades. If you're born in 99 or 91, you're not going to be the same. You know what I mean? So they're
Where were you born, 84?
you probably got to do it by
85.
fives. You probably got to start categorizing people by 5 years.
Depending on the study, millennials go back to 79, 80.
Yeah, well, there's certain ones say I'm a millennial.
Yeah.
I was born in
And
78.
I do not identify with a single millennial in this world.
Well, it's so they say prior to millennials in the Gen X or type area, about 40 to 45% of individual investors are willing to make financial decisions based on moral attributes, not just profitability. So, you might want to, and I've done that. I had a significant stakehold in Facebook for a while. And when they started getting nuts with the censorship, I sold off my Facebook. I was like, I don't want to be a part owner in this company. Now, they've doubled in price since I sold it. So I took a financial hit to get rid of Facebook, but I didn't want them in my portfolio because I just did not agree with them as an organization. So I've done it. So I get that. But that's my choice. That's not an organization telling me I'm not allowed to buy Facebook because they don't talk enough about racial inequality, or because they don't have the right policies on their board, or they don't, have enough solar panels. Like, I'm still allowed to buy it or not buy it based on my own personal choice. But what's happening here is I think you have this whole pandering thing going on because millennials and beyond, it's about 85 to 90% make purchasing decisions based on perceived morality. So now you've got a huge shift in the market. You've got an entire generation that is more concerned about what you're doing, specifically the environment. Not so much governments, I think, but the environment and social issues. But a huge shift in mentality here, where they care more about are you trying to help the planet and help society, or are you just trying to make money? And I think that's the why of it. I think it's a kind of trying to respond to a shift in consumer behavior.
Let's see. I think this ESG thing is fine if it's not a required standard or decisions aren't made based on it other than the consumer.
Investing.
Right?
Like you got banks.
Let the company fly their flags however they want to fly them, and let me pick the companies that fly the flags that I like.
Yeah.
I'm
But
fine with that.
don't tell me that I can't invest in a company because you didn't like the flags they flew.
Or more so, don't tell me I can't get a freaking loan because you're using this stupid score that has no that's just.
Well, and not only that, but they're talking about not allowing you to buy tax deferred money. So like 401ks and Roth IRAs and things like that, not being allowed to use tax deferred money to buy non-ESG mutual funds or ETFs or things like that. And the problem with that is, on average, an ESG fund generates about 50% less revenue. So over the lifespan of somebody who's in their 20s getting into investing, you could cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars going into retirement. But they're saying that because this is technically partially government money, because it's tax deferred, we get to decide what you can and can't invest in. So we're going to authorize what is allowed to be used from tax deferred dollars. You can still buy them, you just can't buy them after tax or pre-tax, or tax deferred. You have to pay. You have to pay to play. I mean, it's crazy.
I wish we had the monitor set up. I want to know where. I would like to see all the when the ESG was passed, like all that. I'd like to see that.
But I don't think anything has been
Well,
passed.
this is no law. This is in the U.S.
Well, how are the banks allowed to use this?
They're being strong-armed in using it. So what's happening?
By who?
Most of it's coming out of Europe. So what's happening is a lot of nations are just basically saying you can't operate within our nation state unless you show proof that you have a minimum ESG. So like Bank of America or like Coke. Let's use Coke as an example. So we have woke Coke, right? They took a bath over the last year for all that. What was it? Don't be less white. Wasn't that that thing that came out?
I don't know.
They
Maybe.
started calling them woke Coke because there was a whole training module that came out.
Oh yeah, the training module. Yeah, sure.
That came out
Yeah.
that was all talking about white supremacy and how you need to be less white in order to, white people are the root of all problems. So they earned the nickname woke Coke, and they took a bath in the media. Not in the media still didn't say a word, but social media. People were saying this is BS, what the heck, this is racism. I firmly believe Coke didn't even really know what they were doing. I think Germany said, hey, we now have ESG scores, and in order for you to get a high enough ESG score to be able to continue to operate in Germany, you need to have diversity, inclusion, and equality staff at your corporate headquarters doing trainings. And Coke said, wait, so for a $300 million market of sugar water, all I have to do is hire a couple of people in our training department that do diversity, equality, and inclusion. And they're like, yep. And Coke said, fine, whatever. And they're like, well, you got to put some documents up and train people. They're like, yeah, whatever, fine. It's $300 million, it's done. And next thing you know, these people they hired are like, well, the way diversity, equality, and inclusion is being done is we currently rag on white people. It'll be somebody else next time, but right now it's white people. And and they started putting documents up, and all this other stuff, and then people started finding out. But I think that's how these corporations are getting dragged in. I think they're being blocked, or Bank of America is being blocked because they can't get their kickbacks from the Federal Reserves from different countries without having ESG score. And then they're also being forced to apply ESG scores to large corporations that want to borrow from them in order to use the money from the Fed banks in order to support other corporations. So then they're requiring ESG. So this is coming from nation states pushing it down. This is not law.
So this is only happening in Europe right now, or a couple different places?
Yeah,
not in the States.
No, it's happening in the States because most of the companies it's affecting, the huge multinational companies in the world are generally in the U.S. Most of the bigger, huge international companies are here. The big retailers, the big tech firms.
I'm curious. Like, I really want to see, like, when we come back from break, I want to get the computer up because I want to see a scoring. Like, I want to see something that shows us a score. I'd love to look at a sample of an ESG score.
Let's see if we can find one.
Can we find one, you think?
I don't know.
I tried.
You can't find one?
I couldn't find anything. But like I said, everything I was finding was
are we
this weird stuff. I don't know.
Like, what did you find?
Like people trying not to explain ESG. I was trying to...
Yeah, it's super shady, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird.
It's like you got to find the right guy under the right street light and be like,
yeah,
tell me what ESG is.
Slide him the 20.
And everything I'm telling you right
50,
now,
100 maybe.
I've read from stories that have come out from ESG implementation, but I can't actually find like a spreadsheet showing me exactly how they did it.
Yeah.
So, so you know what I know? So what I've read a lot about the media, like, you know, like the media drops these things, right? And then later come back to them and blow them up. And they use these kinds of stories like to create catastrophic events, right? So they'll have these little people. They'll have these little people do articles, right? And we could be at this phase right now. I mean, I haven't heard much about. I heard about this, but not much. But so what they do is they have someone will call a little writer, and they'll say, "Hey, we want you to write this thing. We'll pay you." And then they're like, "Okay, you know, hungry little writer, you know, wants to get paid, gets this call from this like, you know." So they write these articles, and then later. They call these people. Then later they come back and then they call CNN or New York Times and they say, "Hey, look at this article. Pick it up. You better get it before."
Or they have a bunch of little hungry writers write articles like this, and then they cite those articles that they told them to write.
That's
as
what they do.
Yeah.
That's what they do, and this is how the media works. This is how, because then they get this like foot of this, because then they don't have responsibility, right? New York Times can take a little article like this. They can take it. Go off of, oh, well, we didn't write it. They wrote it.
Not to go completely off topic, but since you brought up the media, did you see that media organization in D.C. that they just found out took $4.4 million from the Chinese to spread Chinese propaganda through the U.S. media system?
No.
They knew they were doing it, but they finally found the evidence. $4.5 million. They just gave them $4.5 million and a bunch of spreadsheets saying, talk about this, or a bunch of Word docs. And said, just read this and we'll give you $4.5 million. And the news station said, okay.
Yep. Well, I saw Joe Rogan just did an episode where he was talking about Bill Gates. He donated $300 million to all the news media.
To the news medias, yeah. That's
like no wonder no one says anything negative about him.
I'm telling you, the Bill Gates situation, I don't know what's going on there, but I'm fairly positive it's nothing good. And I'm also pretty sure I'm never going to find out for sure because nobody's talking. But you just keep hearing these like snippets, like an interview with an FBI agent that's like, yeah, I was involved in a Bill Gates issue. Like, and they'll tell a story, and then you never hear from that guy again, and the story vanishes.
All of a sudden, you can't talk. What happened to your voice,
man? Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on with Bill Gates, but I'm pretty sure if I bring up too much on this podcast, I vanish. I don't know where I go. I know where I go. Yeah, but
Atlantis.
Just working on computers that are running Windows Me. That's all you do.
So you never get anything done.
No, exactly.
They just break 24/7.
They send they send you to do Linux.
I'm fine with that. I love Linux. That's the ultimate secret of Bill Gates, though, right? Like he looks like the harmless little nerd. You ever see that old Saturday Night Live skit with Ronald Reagan?
No, I don't think so.
Can't recall.
I'm not even gonna try to do it. I'm not gonna try to do a Saturday Night Live.
You gotta
just
try.
Ruin the podcast.
You gotta try.
No, it's just him like coming out and like offering jelly beans to little kids in the Oval Office. He's like, "Hey, little kid, have a jelly bean. I'm just Ronald Reagan, and I want to give you a hug," right? And then as soon as the kids leave and the door closes, he stands up straight. The wall behind him spins around. It's nothing but nuclear missile silos. And he's like, "Let's get to business. Who do we murder next?" It's like, I feel like that's Bill Gates. And the camera's on him. He's like, "I'm just a nerd. Don't look at me." And as soon as the camera's off, all of a sudden he stands up straight. He grows muscles. He just starts beating dolphins.
And with that, we're going to break.
We're going to break. Now, a word from our sponsor, Microsoft.
Yeah. Podcast about the best security in the world.
All right, back to this podcast.
The very best security that you...
Back to this podcast, because that's a whole different conversation. But I like where your head's at. I agree. Security is always a good topic. So I don't even know where we left it off. We started getting a little into this here, but I know, Jimmy, you were talking about the investing side of ESGs. And now, so I mean, you can look it up right now if you want to try to find it on there. I know we don't have the screen share, and for anybody who's watching, anybody out there watching, I apologize. We usually have the screen share. We didn't set it up today. But if you want to look up, I mean, just pick a corporation and search what is their ESG score, and just see what comes up.
Can we do it on here?
Yeah, you can do it on here. That's on the Wi-Fi. Just don't do any inappropriate stuff.
All right. Dark web.
So yeah, just stay off the dark web, man. Oh, here's my McDonald's example right here. So Yeah, I mean, this came.
Where's the browser? This
came
is
to
this an
Safari. It's
iPhone?
Safari, the second one in from the bottom left.
This is an iPhone. I don't do iPhones.
We should just have
I don't
an
do-
episode with Jimmy going through different OSs.
I
put him on
don't do
Linux.
I.
I'll just drop him in front of an Ubuntu laptop and just ask him to do basic tasks. Like
Dude.
send an email and just watch him just lose his mind.
You guys can do whatever you want to me.
Snuff film. All right.
Good lord.
I'm game.
I'm game.
I'm
I've
game.
had enough. I'm out.
I'm game. What is it? What is it
So-
we're talking about? ESG?
ESG. So just look up what. Give me a company. Like what? Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook. Yeah.
I didn't
Meta. It's technically Meta
I didn't
now.
pick this topic.
So you pick a company. I don't care.
All
what
right,
company.
ESG scores. You guys talk to the audience while I find something.
All right. Well, and all right, I'm going to bring it back to what Jimmy was saying before. So my big issue with ESG is we already had ESG. I mean, we have so many categories that investors use. I mean, I'm an investor. I mean, I look at sustainable investing. I look at socially responsible investing. I look at mission-related investing. I mean, you were talking about it. What was the example you were giving?
The company, like Tom's.
Yeah, like Tom's.
Who gives a pair of shoes, or Bombas socks that Jimmy had mentioned.
Yeah.
They give a pair of socks, which is, I mean, that's great. I don't like their products, so.
I don't either,
wouldn't
but
invest in it,
I'm not going to lie. I bought a pair of Tom's shoes.
Yeah.
Because I wanted somebody to get a free pair of shoes.
Yeah.
And I didn't like them, so I didn't buy them anymore. I mean, the product still has to not suck.
Right,
but-
and I mean, it obviously doesn't for most people, but it's not my wife wears them, and she likes Tom's.
Does she?
Yeah, I think she has a pair probably somewhere, but
And I think that type of stuff is
that's excellent.
awesome.
Yeah, it's great because I intentionally look at organizations that align with some of my personal viewpoints, and I will support them before I'll go to an Amazon or something to buy something from them.
Well, and we're actively working on marketing for a product that specifically aligns with certain types of people, that gives to first responders and military veterans and things like that. So we're engaged in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're doing it too. So it's not like it's a foreign concept. I mean, people are aware of this. I just don't. You know what this is? This all ties back to my "don't should on me." I feel like this is a giant pile of shit.
It really is. Well, and I think I had said it to you. It feels like the peak cancel culture.
It really
Right.
does.
Like, here's the reason why we are canceling you, and we put it into a star value.
Well, even that Tesla example I gave you. Like, how the heck does Tesla get a 1-star rating on an ESG unless you want to cancel Tesla?
Yeah,
I don't
it's-
like Tesla. I'm giving them 1 star to hurt them.
This is just disturbing.
What's that?
Facebook has a 32.4 rating out of 40.
That makes sense. I mean,
They have a high. It says, okay, it looks like it's a 40 plus. They're 32.4. They're high risk. Am I reading this wrong?
I don't know what you're reading.
All right, software's their rank. This is weird stuff.
Should we come back to you? Tyler and I were having a conversation.
Give me 1 second.
Well, I saw that
Give
head
me
whip
one-
around.
Give me 1
Now
second.
I'm not sure I understand what I'm reading. Go ahead. Go back to what you're talking about.
No, and if we can get some actual scores that we can digest, I think that would be great. Oh, it's Tyler.
I was going to try to pull up the same thing he had.
All right, so let's see what you got.
Where are you at, Jimmy? What link?
I found this sustainalytics.com.
Okay, now you got to remember that this is not.
Let's see.
Most
I
this is
typed
not a-
in-
It's not a
here.
universal ESG.
My search was Meta.
I mean, Facebook
ESG
publishes their
score.
own stuff.
All right. So,
I thought they had a good rating, but I'm starting to think maybe if they have a higher.
Do you want me to take a look?
Well, it says high risk. I
Alright,
thought it
so-
was a high
So
score.
what we're looking at here, since we don't have it up on the big screen, is we've got negligible, low, medium, high, and severe in form of risk. So, and then they're giving them a score out of 40. So you can get over 40, but anything over 40 is a severe risk.
But then why?
So
would
the
this
lower
be
the number's
negligible?
better?
Why would 0 be negligible?
In this one, this is what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah,
there are
so-
multiple different ways to do ESG scores. So in this particular, sustainalytics.com uses a 40-point scale.
In comparison, would this be like how much people feel spice when they're eating something? Like, you know what
So
I mean?
this is like capsaicin.
Yeah, well, no, it's like my mom can eat the hottest food and it's nothing to her, but if my wife were to touch pepper like just table pepper, she freaks out.
She has hives, breaks out into hives.
I mean, pretty close, but it has too much pepper. No, there's none in it.
Yeah.
But that's what it feels like to me.
Okay, let's start. First of all, I don't even get the scale rating.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out here. Exactly.
Because it says
I think that's the problem, though, too, right?
Like-
that's the whole core. Of
like
this.
look at
whole
the
core of
look
the
at the
problem.
scale.
So it's saying exposure. Exposure refers to the extent to which a company is exposed to different material ESG issues. Our exposure score takes into consideration sub-industry and company-specific factors such as its business model. That doesn't tell you anything, right? And they got a medium, which also tells you nothing. Management. Management refers to how well a company is managing its relevant ESG issues. Again, when you reference the definition in the definition, that is the definition
That's the
of
not understanding.
yeah, they're just obfuscating. Our management score assesses
What-
the
wait, wait, wait.
robustness of
What's
a
that word mean?
obfuscate?
Yep.
That means to cloud or to hide.
Obfuscate.
Obfuscate?
Oh, I
I
get
don't
the
know how to
hiccups.
say it now.
Well, now I don't know how to say it. Why are we all saying it different?
Obfuscate?
It's obfuscate. Right?
No,
Op-
it's
Like is it like
Am I putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable?
OP?
I think so, but I
H?
can't say it myself.
Obfuscate.
It's him.
Is he messing us up?
He's
Why are
bringing
you
us
doing
down.
this to
I'm
us?
trying to get you guys down to my
It's
level.
that memes.
He's in my head.
It's them memes.
So yeah, so this,
Wait,
this
go back to the top. Like the very first scale that they're putting on. Explain this to me. Okay.
all right, so,
negligible.
let me explain this to you.
0 to 10 is negligible.
Yeah, he's doing it again. Now I can't say that word. He's ruining the entire.
Negligible.
But then 40 plus is high risk.
Wait, here's the thing.
Does that mean you're screwed either way?
Here's what you have to understand: the flabbernids are commensurate to the smortdicks. Yeah, see, I can make up words too. I mean, this whole thing makes nothing. That is
The titanium scale.
that is absolute crap right now. This is what I'm talking about. That is not a real thing, but somebody's
So-
gonna look at that and be like 32.4. I don't know.
If
That's
you're
risky.
if you're 0 to 10, you're negligible. And if you're plus 40, you're a severe risk.
Risk of what?
I don't know.
What are we risking?
You're either a severe risk or you're negligible.
Now, I'm assuming,
Does that mean you need to be in the middle?
there's got to be?
Dude,
Is there
that's-
a chart on here that tells us?
I can't even believe what my eyes just
All right,
saw.
hold on. So we're going to take a look. Let me just see if corporate solutions, investor solutions, ESG. You know what? I think we got to find a new site. This site seems absolutely atrocious.
The S&P 500 has an ESG index.
All right. So what is there? Is that maybe they made more sense?
Facebook is not on it anymore. They got dropped.
Oh, that makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah, because
Because they're high risk.
They're horrible.
Yeah, they're.
Look at what they've done with people's personal data.
And they're a 32.8. I mean, they can't be on that scale.
Yeah.
Not at 32.8. That's ridiculous. So what does the S&P 500 say about who? I mean, give me what company are you looking at?
So let's see. There's top 10 constituents by index weight. That's Apple, Microsoft. So yeah, it's their 500.
So look up. You're gonna do Tesla. Let's do Tesla.
Let me test
Is Tesla in there? Let's see what they're doing with Tesla.
Yeah, Tesla's one here.
All right, so give me some of that sweet S&P 500 loving, and let's hear what they have to say. And pick anybody except the S&P 500, and let's see what they give you on your magic iPad.
I'm sorry, what was the request?
Tesla.
Oh.
Find out. Are you looking them up on that site?
Yeah, I got Tesla.
Perfect. He's got Tesla up on his crappy site. What does your crappy site say?
I don't know.
Tesla's at 28.5. They're medium.
Okay, now again, they don't explain what that means.
No, because
So-
they're either negligible.
They're not negligible. That's
why can't I say the word negligible? Or,
well, it's a word that obfuscates itself.
so is it being in the middle? I'm getting the feeling being in the middle.
But I don't understand middle of what?
Balance?
Of what?
I don't know.
I mean, they make electric cars.
You know, like college kids came up with this.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. If you can find any type of information on that rating scale, that would be hugely helpful.
Okay, ranking.
So I can't
there are
find any ratings on this. It's called an ESG index.
There.
There's nothing about
Oh,
ESG.
is it an index fund?
It's the
It's an
S&P
index
500.
fund.
Is
All
that
right, so
why?
it's just taking a bunch of ESG rated companies, putting them into. This is what I'm talking about. Like, they don't give you any reason why Tesla would be on that list. They're
Yeah.
just telling you, if you want to buy an ESG rated fund, here's one for you, and it's ranked as ESG. But they don't tell you what the score is, why it's ranked as ESG. They don't give you any information that's really quantifiable.
It's terrible.
They just say, we want you to buy our fund. I mean, I'm telling you, I found multiple instances of BlackRock actively taking the same companies and putting them into ESG and non-ESG funds based on what they wanted the fund to look like, weighted wise, between industry, and they justified it within like the same paragraph. Like, I mean, it's the whole thing is an invented thing that makes millennials feel better about their investment choices. It's really what I think it is. Like, they're trying to make millennials feel better about going into the stock market because I'm not buying stocks for profit. I'm buying stocks to save the earth. And it's like, you're buying the same stocks I am, jackwagon. You just want to see 3 letters in front of it to make you feel better. Like, it's all about your feelings, whereas I'm running it off of math. But
Well, here, so Tesla is coming in at 28.5. Their ranking industry group is automobiles.
okay,
Do you remember what Facebook's was?
not automobiles.
So they're 40 out of 82.
Wait, I
And
thought
then
we were
they
on a
have
40
this-
points. Wait, 40 out of 82 for what?
That's for automobiles ranking.
That's their
A
rank.
ranking amongst automobile manufacturers, maybe, like in their industry.
I guess. But then they have this global universe rating. So they're 80, and that rating,
All right, so my guess there would be
15,085 is the top. So
my
you got,
guess was they have 15,085 ranked companies, and 82 of those are in the automobile space. Of those 82 in the automobile space, they rank as number 40. Of those 15,085, they rank as number 8,156.
in the global universe. So we have to understand the ranking, what the global universe ranking is, and then
It's in the ESG metaverse.
okay, so only in automobiles, really? You're taking like the social. You're going to decide this company what their level of responsibility is only to automobiles, really?
And
Like,
if you're
wouldn't it just
comparing
be
them,
an overall?
I don't know, man. I don't know. That's what I'm telling you. There is nothing clear cut about this ESG system, but we're using it to make long-term strategic decisions for people's, investments. This is a dangerous game. Oh, MSCI. I did a lot of research on them.
Yeah, it's
So now are you on MSCI's site? Okay.
Yes,
so
I
this
am.
is one of the big ESG ranking companies. They do a lot of mutual funds, ETFs, things like that, where they put together ESG funds. These guys took a lot of heat in the research I did.
Man,
Apparently,
I wish we had this
they are awful.
well, yeah.
But their ranking apparently at least is a little bit more transparent than others. So let's see what they have to say. Can you look up individual companies on there?
I'm on Tesla right now.
Okay, so what do they say about Tesla? So for those at home, MSCI.com, I think is their site.
Yeah, MSCI.
MSCI.com. So this
And-
is an ESG investment fund organization.
So their ESG section rates Tesla as an A,
Okay.
and
let's compare
that
the
is
two.
that has dropped down since 2018. They were a double A, which is
Tyler,
better.
let's try to go back
Now
and
they go
forth with what your
they go
site's
double
got and what I
A,
got.
double B, B, double C.
Triple B, double B,
Okay.
B, triple C.
So they do triples. Okay.
So
Yeah.
maybe we can make sense of the information that's on it by comparing the two sites. So
Yeah.
this site that I'm on is still sustainalytics.com. And you have a A/B rating on yours.
I have an A rating,
So you got an A rating for
With double A
Tesla.
being the highest, right?
triple A. being
There
the
is a
highest.
triple A. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And so we're at a 28.5 on mine.
Well, yours I don't
As a
understand
median.
because I don't understand how ESG can even put you at risk, except maybe in a governance sense. But even if you're terrible from an environmental standpoint, you're still not a risk to an investor. Who are you? I don't even understand who you're a risk to there. Are you a risk to the global ecosystem? Like, I don't understand what they're trying to say on your site. This one at least makes a little bit of sense.
They kind of spell. I mean, this kind of see through. Like
Well, give us some
they
detail.
call Tesla an ESG laggard in product safety and quality and labor management. They're average in their product carbon footprint, but they are a leader in their governance, behavior, and opportunities in clean tech.
Now, do they give you criteria for that?
Leader just means they're leading the industry. Average is mixed or unexceptional track record of managing these ESG risks. And then laggard would be just completely behind everybody.
So environmentally, an electric car company is a laggard.
I got to subscribe to get more
No, and see, this isn't
information.
even, let's see, we focus on the key issues here to the automobile industry. So these are specific to, these issues are specific to the automobile industry. And this is how they compare to their industry peers. Okay, so that makes sense then.
Okay.
What peers do you have on your list? Did they give you a list?
No.
No, they're not giving.
So
you
over here I have a list of industry comparison. Daimler AG. Do you have
Daimler.
Chrysler.
Daimler?
Chrysler, Daimler, yeah.
Okay, Daimler. Honda. Okay, so Daimler is a 14 out of 82.
Oh, okay. So they're ranked pretty. Is that good?
I
Feels
don't
good.
know
I
because
feel like that's
you're
good.
either negligent
No,
or
negligent.
high risk.
I like how he's changing the word every time he says it. No, it
Well-
said that 1 was best, was least risk. So
Over here?
14 would be significantly better than Tesla.
Well, how is negligible even a term you use
Well, these guys seem to be rating
as
them
a positive word?
negligible risk is, I think, what they're saying, because they have them ranked as
Low risk,
they have them ranked as
medium
medium risk.
risk,
So
high
negligible
risk.
means negligible risk, but I don't know what risk of what. Like that's what I'm saying. Your site is wildly incomplete in the amount of information it shares. Your site at least is breaking it down by sections, but again, it doesn't give you the criteria it uses.
No, and that's what I was trying to.
Nor does it really get into what specific things they're doing that would cause their rating to change. And I think in a lot of ways this is and I think I've made it clear 45, 50 minutes into this podcast that I am not a fan of ESG.
Yeah.
I think this falls into, do you guys remember, and it's been out of the media for a while, but do you guys remember the net neutrality conversation?
Yeah.
Do you guys know what net neutrality was?
I don't quite remember.
Okay, that's fine. It's been a while. So net neutrality is what I affectionately call a solution in search of a problem. So some moron came up with this idea that, hey, we could have a problem here, guys. Which, if anybody sits around and thinks long enough, you're going to find a million problems. Like, there's always problems that you can imagine could happen. Like, my daughter right now could be getting taken from somebody. I could freak out and panic and go run outside and find my daughter. Or I can assume that based on the math and how often people get taken, that she's probably not.
Occam's razor.
Occam's razor. The simplest is generally correct. But some moron came up with this concept that, hey, you guys know, if we don't regulate these internet service providers, they could start selling bandwidth to the highest bidder, and then all of a sudden Netflix and all these other companies will just start buying up all the bandwidth, and all the small companies that want to come in and do stuff on the internet won't be able to get bandwidth, and then it'll just be Netflix, and that'll be it on the entire internet. Netflix and Facebook and everybody else will get bought out, and nobody will get to do anything, right? Which I guess technically could happen, has never happened, that has ever been quantified. Definitely not any of the big companies. Now, there has been instances where like companies like Netflix have paid like Comcast to build them separate networks, but they paid for them to do it, and it never affected the other internet. It just gave them a direct access route to push higher bandwidths directly into Comcast. Which is perfectly valid. There's nothing wrong with that. But at no point was there ever any quantifiable evidence that this was ever a thing. And they wanted to fundamentally change the internet to protect against it. And I had this argument with a tech guy who said, yeah, well, it would be a real problem if it happened. And I said, if it happened, we could deal with it pretty easily. I said, but it's never happened. Regulating things that you think might happen is the definition of insanity.
Not the definition of government, too, to
waste
some
of
extent.
Well, it's insane. I mean, you're going to ruin the internet in order to, because what they were talking about was they were literally going to throttle everybody. So this was going to have negative impacts on everything to protect against a potential issue that we've never seen and that nobody's talking about. It was a theoretical.
That was the throttle everybody, and then you could pay more to get better access type deal.
No, it was basically like nobody. You had to. Everybody was. There was multiple variations of net neutrality.
Yeah.
But essentially, the concept was that the core overbearing thing here was they wanted to regulate ISPs.
Yeah.
And they were trying to figure out a way to put a compliancy officer in ISPs so they could start taking over ISPs. And that's all it was. It wasn't really going to do anything in the beginning except get the government into ISPs so that they could start influencing ISPs.
Well, criminals are always a step ahead, so I guess there's some legitimacy to trying to think.
Yeah, but if
be
you
ahead of the curve,
criminals are
Yeah,
never
but
going to
that's-
go where you already are.
Yeah,
So if you're putting net neutrality in, criminals are
Well-
going to, and plus they weren't protecting you against criminals. They were protecting you against your own ISP.
Well, if you
You're the customer
think
for it.
if you do work for a customer and you think there's going to be a problem, you don't say, well, there hasn't been a problem yet, we're not going to mess with it. We'll wait till there's a problem. You're like, okay, well, let's plug the hole.
Well, it depends on what the problem is. If I think there's going to be a technical issue, I do an investigation to see if there's a likelihood of that. But that's not what we're talking about. This wasn't a technical issue. The networks were sound. This would be the equivalent of me saying, hey, it's possible one of your employees might lock themselves into the bathroom because there's a deadbolt on that bathroom and die of starvation.
Well,
So we should get rid of all your bathrooms. Like, that's more like that. We created a ridiculous scenario that would never happen because they obviously know how to use the deadbolt to get in. They can use it to get out. And then we eliminate bathrooms to protect ourselves from the theoretical person that will die of starvation taking a crap because they can't get out of a deadbolt. Like, it's more like that than a technical issue. It's me giving advice on something I know nothing about in a scenario that I really don't know anything about in a part of the business that I'm not associated with. Because I had a dream, I guess. I don't know. Like, I don't know where these people even come up with this crap.
Well,
They don't
that's
know
why
anything
the
about
world
IT.
needs rational people, because when they come up with crazy ideas, we can make sensible solutions.
Well, if it hadn't been, and I hate to say this, it hadn't been for Donald Trump, we'd probably have net neutrality right now, and it would be a thing. It would be a real, and it would cause. What it was going to do is it was going to jump everybody's internet service prices were going to double. So if you're paying $200 a month, you were going to pay $350 to $400 a month. Because they were going to charge fees to the internet service providers to guarantee that they didn't do the thing that they weren't doing.
And it was more of a money grab than anything.
Well, it was going to force them to file compliancy paperwork. It was going to force them to do reportings to the government.
Now it
all
makes
this other
sense.
stuff.
Now
and,
it makes sense.
And the ISPs were saying, we'll do it, but we're just going to pass the cost on to the consumers, and your internet bills are going to go up 50 to 100%.
Or maybe it was the back end internet companies that created they had the little guys write the articles, and then they brought.
Well, at least
it
the
to life.
ISPs didn't want it. So at least in this case, I don't think they were
Didn't work out that
complicit.
way.
But I don't know. Anyway, but this feels like that. We're creating a situation that we can then control. But it's not a real situation. It's an invented situation. Like, these are invented scenarios. Even the scoring that we're looking at is invented scoring with no metrics or verifiable information, yet we're making life-altering decisions based off these scores. Who do we invest in? What do I trust my retirement dollars to? Like, does this oil company that heats my house get a loan to keep their trucks rolling?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you don't like oil companies, I'm not judging oil companies or your like or dislike of them. We need them.
Just say in our nation, how many houses run off of oil?
Mine does.
Mine does. Yep.
Our office does too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because we're not near a gas hookup.
That and well, yeah. I mean, I guess I'm technically in, but I'm not gonna pay to retrofit my house at this point if everything's working.
Yeah, and I wouldn't.
Plus, my heating costs are pretty damn cheap because I buy at the right time and
Yep.
we don't use a lot. So
Well, I mean, it's this hatred of things is a weird concept. It's like that friend you knew that used to punch drywall. It doesn't actually serve any purpose. Like, all you're gonna do is break your hand. Like, the drywall doesn't care. Like, hating oil doesn't actually get us anything. Like, your real problem is not oil. Your real problem is energy distribution. So stop ragging on the oil companies. They're just filling a need. If you have an energy distribution issue, rag on the government. Like, you should be yelling at the government for saying we don't have proper infrastructure. Like, you shouldn't be yelling at oil companies. They're just making oil because people need oil. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's circular logic.
Are you sure you wanted to use the word rag?
what's wrong with the word rag?
I mean, I don't identify as a rag. I don't.
That's a pretty provocative word.
What is it? I don't know. What does it mean?
Isn't that something used to clean something?
Rag on people.
What is that? Does it mean something I don't know about? Oh wait, is that like a?
The broken agenda.
I don't know what it
woke
means.
edition.
I don't know what it means.
I don't either.
I don't know what it means.
Well, that's like females don't like that too much.
They don't?
A rag?
Because
Talk about the rag? To use the word. Hey, let's just go back to the discussion.
I don't.
Yeah, no, what?
It was just supposed to be a quick pop thing.
Well,
Isn't
I
that
don't.
I didn't know you guys didn't know
I
about
don't
it.
know a lot of slang. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Dude, I am not hit.
I didn't.
in any
I
way, shape,
didn't
or
expect
form.
to catch you guys off guard. I
Oh,
thought.
dude. But my favorite one of these was my wife was in a training in front of like 50 people one time, and she was talking about how her and I had a lazy Sunday, and we were just sitting out in front of our house watching the sunset, you know, just in our rocking chairs, just being a bunch of porch monkeys, right? And she got pulled aside after the training, and they're like, "You can't say that," and she goes, "Can't say what?" And they're like,
Porch monkeys.
"Can't see," and they're whispering it, and she's like, "I don't understand what you're talking." She had no idea what she was saying,
Yep.
and they wouldn't tell her. They're like, "We just can't talk about it." She's like, "Can't talk about what? I don't understand what's happening. We were just on the porch, you know, and we evolved from monkeys. We're just being a bunch of porch." They're like, "Stop saying it."
My mom had that. We had told her that term, and we were driving through the city one time.
Yeah.
Windows down, and she's like, "Look at all the porch monkeys." Mom, shut the fuck up.
You're gonna get us murdered.
Now we really messed up this episode.
Well, I mean, no, we're not saying it in a derogatory way.
It's
a real story. It happened, but this is my favorite story of my wife though, because she is so adorably innocent at times. But all right, so we are running out of time here. The bottom line is, I think the statements we made hold up. We spent the last 20 minutes running searches, and we still can't find any verifiable evidence. I mean, would you agree with that, Jimmy? Because you seem to not be on board with my assessment of ESG fully, which is good. We shouldn't always agree.
I feel more confused than anything. I mean, I don't know even. This even messes up what I was gonna say at the end of the show, because I'm not even sure what to say. Because
what were you gonna say? Because you were excited that you.
Well, I was gonna say, if basically, if you're gonna invest in companies, then obviously this is a very bias. I would buy companies with negligible scores. Because
so you would use this ESG tracker to make decisions on investment.
I feel like this is an extreme case of bias.
So you wouldn't use
in a woke world, and I feel companies with lower scores is the smart choice to invest in, because I think that this is an idiot's score.
Wait, so you're saying bias is good?
So now I'm confused.
It seems.
So if the bias system gives you a good score, that's good?
What I was telling you is I'm confused. Because I think negligible isn't good, and I think high risk isn't good, but...
I don't think bias means what you think it means.
Well, bias being that, like, people are just, like... I think these scores are rated on people's
maybe
with weird agendas.
I think what he's trying to say
I don't think the agendas are, like, legit, and I think I think good companies are getting low scores from shitbirds, and crap companies are getting good scores by shitbirds. So I'm going to go with taking the low
scores.
The companies
bias.
they rate that suck are the companies I want to invest in.
You're still willing to listen to the shitbirds, though. Like,
I'm willing to go against them, and I would invest in all the companies they tell me not to invest in. Does that make sense?
All right,
so you're going to use it. He's going to use it as a gauge, and he's going to be like, "They hate this, so I love it."
Just obstructionist Jimmy.
Yeah, it's like an idiot's
contrarian
gauge.
Jimmy.
I won't do what you told me.
I'm going to look at where
rage against the machine.
It's where are the idiots flying? They're over there. Yeah, I'm going over here.
Well, what about the fact that his score said that Tesla was good, and your score said that Tesla is borderline bad? Like, which one is the shitbird?
Well, remember when I said I was confused, and even my closing statement, I didn't know what to say about it? That's kind of what happened. We didn't even verify anything one way or the other here. I don't even know at this point what these scores mean. We went through a 2-hour show, and we spent the last hour. How long was our show?
6.
The show's now
6 hours.
So we spent the last. Okay, so we spent the last 30 minutes trying to understand these scores, and we still don't even understand.
Nope.
Well, I think that's the problem.
Closing thoughts, Tyler.
I'm all for companies, kind of waving their banners, like I said earlier, but it shouldn't be a qualification for if they can even do business, right? That just be something to fly for me to decide who I like and who I don't like and who I want to buy from. But the second it limits people's ability to get into the market is a problem.
And I'm going to finish with saying the entire concept of ESG at this point, with how it's currently structured, is criminal.
Mm-hmm.
I think borderline just straight up criminal. I mean, this whole thing to me rings every single bell I have in my head for a rigged system. And there's nothing about this that seems legitimate. And the fact that it has permutated so much of our market already is terrifying to me. Something that is so just fuzzy and nondescript. I don't know. I wouldn't listen to a damn thing any of these, as you say, shitbirds would write either direction, because I don't know what their agenda is. I don't know if they're trying to destroy the company. I don't know if they're trying to reverse psychology me. I know they're not basing it on fact, so it could mean anything. I
think-
I could be losing at rock, paper, scissors against these guys. I don't know.
And if banks are
I'm
using
throwing
this,
scissors, they're throwing dynamite. I don't know what's going on.
to think that banks are using this, how are they even?
I'm telling you, I think a lot of companies got strong armed into this. I really do. I don't think they really want to, but I think about it too. How much power does that give Bank of America?
I think if I'm,
If they don't want to give you a loan, they just kind of go in and tweak your ESG down and be like, yeah, sorry, you don't meet our qualifications. Bang, they get
Well,
they
the
get
bank
out
doesn't-
scot-free. They don't ever have to worry about getting sued. They don't have to worry about,
the bank doesn't have the ability to do that, do they?
If they're the ones giving you the money,
We couldn't figure out what the ESG score was searching the global internet. You don't think the bank can make their own ESG or hire somebody outside the bank and pay them a ton of money to make whatever ESG score they want?
and that was going to be the point I was going to bring up. There's no standard to it, so why not create your own department or
Absolutely.
be neutral and hire somebody that you pay a lot of money to give you the score that you want, right?
Yep. And now all of a sudden, from a banking standpoint, this is kind of a beautiful shield, because how are you going to sue the bank for discrimination law when they didn't reject you because you were a minority-owned business? They rejected you because, your governance score was just a little too low. So sorry. We really wanted to do work with you, but those darn ESGs. The bank literally just built themselves an iron dome to never have to worry about a lawsuit.
I think I'm gonna start just aligning myself with private money. I don't even think I want to use banks anymore.
Jimmy, just hang out with me. I got your back.
That's what people should do.
It's the
Just hang out
20s.
with
Are,
If you check with your bank and they use this score, you should close your account. And
Well, local banks aren't using this.
Yeah.
I checked. I made
let's
some phone
dump.
calls.
Let's all make a pact to dump these big, huge banks.
I worry that eventually it's going to end up everywhere, though. Local banks will hold out, but they're actively trying to destroy local banks right now too, and that's a podcast for a different day.
And so if we
But
put
there's
all our money
legislation
in local
happening
banks,
right now to destroy local banks.
and what's that legislation?
We'll get into it another time. I didn't come prepared, and I don't want to give bad information, but they're actively. I think we should have a podcast on that too.
So then we got to take everybody into steps. We push everybody to private banks, and then if they force the private banks out, then we start going to private lenders.
no, you just start going black market banks.
Yeah,
There you
That's
go.
what happens.
like we need
Go on a
to
Tor
we,
browser
loan
and
sharks.
search
we
bank.
need to we
Yeah,
need to
exactly.
just boycott the powers. I mean, we got
How do
to.
you boycott the power? Look,
I don't know.
Good luck. The powers are Facebook and Bank of America.
Well, don't use Facebook because there's better metaverses, and Facebook is a liar. They're not even a metaverse.
I know that, but most of the people, our audience obviously knows what a metaverse is because you educated them, but that makes 9 people, including the 3 of us
22,
and my mom.
not 9, 22.
I'm kidding. No, I don't know.
Wasn't it 22, Tyler? Or
No, we
Harris?
have no idea what our numbers
That was a
are.
conspiracy episode.
That was-
Unless Craig keeps watching them 3 times, 4 times.
Yeah, I pull it up whenever
To get our
you say
ratings
them.
up.
we have access to about 400 different networks, corporate networks, and I go into every single computer every night and pull up our podcast. We have thousands of viewers.
We need to get some thousands of viewers.
We're good. We're killing our rep here. Everybody, thank you so much. It was a great episode. I don't know if any of that was helpful in any way, shape, or form, but we enjoyed giving it to you. Jimmy, Tyler, Craig, have a great holiday. We'll see you in the new year.
Merry Christmas.
The Broken Agenda Podcast. Sponsored by Laughing Rock Technology.